family is like, yeah, you moved back to Ukraine and you feel safer, and we're like, absolutely.
Yeah, like artists are kind of like prophets, you know, they prophesy a better future. They prophesy the future, right? Because they need to envision it.
All of the gray areas have become more like black and white, and people like no, not this anymore. Like we wanna build like our life and our society like this. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to our first living room podcast that we were thinking to do with my husband Paul for a really long time.
Hello.
So super excited about it. In this podcast we want to talk about what we're going to talk about.
Well, we just spent our first full year in Ukraine. After we came back from Europe. And we want to talk about that, how it was, our thoughts about this time, and
the lessons that we learned, and most of all just about culture and art and the true freedom, which is without true freedom, creativity and art is not possible. So I just really feel like it's really timely to talk about it, as it has been a whole full year in Ukraine, and Ukraine is fighting for its freedom right now, and a lot of things happening, but even more a lot of culture and art is being like rising up in this time. So it is really encouraging, and we just want to share our thoughts with you guys on the topic.
Yeah, and I feel like we are in the middle of it. I mean, we literally came back to Ukraine, and one of the first things that we did before you actually had your art studio here in this living room where we are filming this podcast now, but I mean it was a mess, you know.
A mess.
we couldn't have an art studio in the living room.
Not anymore. I think it's a really it was a necessary step, and for everyone starting out, like you have to do it. You have to have your studio either in your living room or corner of your kitchen, or some people have it in their bedroom. Or in the garage. This is just like all of the great things, they start really small, and small beginnings, they're not to be underestimated, because everything great and big and meaningful, it starts small, it starts from a little seed. So it was a good season. It was important. Like I couldn't have done it without having studio in the living room, but it was time to grow.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you did like so many paintings here, right? Like Esther sold here so many paintings from this living room, basically, right? As you were painting back then.
That's why we call a podcast living room, because I feel like the life just rotates in the living room, and living room is a place where we meet our friends, where we talk about the different things, where we gather with the family, where we invite guests, where we work sometimes. So I don't know, it felt like a cool title for the podcast.
Yeah, so anyways, we came back here, and because we didn't want that setup in the living room anymore, where Esther needs to paint basically in the same place where we live. One of the first things that we did is we looked for a studio place to rent. And we were really blessed, like really found a good spot, like pretty soon. For good reasonable amount of money. Also to invest into that.
I had so many second thoughts though, because our initial plan was just like, okay, we're coming back to Ukraine, but we don't know. Like we were in this limbo season that we're still kind of in it, like we don't know for how long we are staying here at the moment. And when we just came, it was like even more drastic. So I was like, maybe if it's like really temporary and I can like just keep painting in my living room. And Paul was like, no, it doesn't matter for how long we stay. Like we need a setup, like we need a proper way to like run business from and just make it professional. And it's not good mental setup also to like be in the constant limbo and the constant waiting and like not go after your destiny, not go after things that you know are right, just because the circumstances are telling you different things, right?
Yeah. And now, 1 year later, we see how big of a good decision and just of a blessing that was to rent that space, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest studio you've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
To create art, it's really giant. We have so much storage place. You're able to create a lot of art from it.
Oh, I'm really happy with it. Well, another reason for this podcast is that just we really love each other and we love talking to each other. Like we literally spend, I don't know, at least like a couple hours a day, I would say, just like talking. And
we're both philosophers.
we in some way. I started on philosophical faculty back in the days. I never like graduated. I quit, but I love poetry, and I love philosophy, and I love culture, and I like just thinking and talking about all things deep and meaningful. And I feel like we're really similar in this way, and we just like, we're never bored with each other. We never like run out of the things to discuss and things to talk about. And either it's in the living room, or when we go to grab a coffee, or where we like take a walk in the park, we just love talking. We're like really enjoying each other's company. So that was another thing that, and we also hear from other people that like we are just cool people to have conversation with, and like
not to brag, but
not to brag,
cool.
yeah. But it just, we thought maybe other people can relate to it and just participate in this living room conversation.
We really love hosting people. You know, we want to, we just love inviting people to our home, you know, having them around the couch, you know, the table, having them in our living room, right? So this is something that just comes super natural to us. What do you think in terms of culture and art, coming back to Ukraine? What are some like key things that you notice like during this time now that we're back here? What has changed, you know? I mean, you lived here in Uzhhorod already like 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago you moved here.
I moved here 10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. But then you lived abroad, right? We lived in Germany for a time.
Yeah, we traveled individually and together. I would say I didn't know what to expect coming back from Ukraine. I mean, neither do you, like you at all. We knew that this region is safe because it's right on the border, so it never like has been directly targeted. So, and there was like also this apartment that was rented for multiple people before, so it was a mess. It needed to like many things needed to be done with bureaucracy and other things. So I knew it's important to come back. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't like, we didn't plan to stay here in the first place for a long time, and we didn't expect to like it so much, because I mean, when you tell people like we are moving to Ukraine and it's like in the middle of the war, they're like, what are you thinking? You know, it's like the least attractive news for your parents.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And
so I'm from Germany originally, and basically also lived there my whole life. I mean, I was traveling, you know, living abroad here and there. But yeah, I mean, I also felt like, okay, we do have this apartment and responsibilities in Ukraine, right? Because we have this apartment here. So initially, our plan was to really just repair things, right, and to
take care of the art, because I had all of my older art like stored here. And if like someone would like acquire about an older painting, I'm like, I need to find people. And a lot of people, they moved abroad or they just relocated like to other regions. And it has been just like a constant flow of people. And I lost connection with many of my friends. So it wasn't like really anyone reliable anymore to like really go and like deal with the storage and the art and like properly prepare it even for shipping overseas. So I was like, okay, it's really like I couldn't just abandon my art, like I have to come back and deal with it. So there was just all of these responsibilities that they were like not fully there, and they needed us physically here. But when we came here, it was just really surprisingly different from what we expected. Of course we have like this sirens time to time, and you see funerals, you see like generators and like electricity shortages, but like you see that the war is present in some way. It's still distant in this region, but it's present, and you can see from people that like there's many new struggles to it. But in the same time, there's just like has been, I would say, some kind of like cultural and just national revival in so many layers. Like you see people really growing drastically, like from what I remember, because like we just got our, like yesterday, by the way, but was Independence Day, Ukrainian Independence Day. So it has been, if I'm right, like it was 33 years. No, it was like independence got declared in 1991. So it has been not so long ago, but also it is quite some time. But all of those Soviet like mentality and just things that dragging from the past and from this like socialist communist regime, they were still like taking so much like hold on the nation, on the culture, on our identity. We didn't fully like, I didn't fully know growing up like what is my identity as a Ukrainian, because my parents grew up in Soviet and that's all they knew. And
that's not only a Ukrainian problem. I mean, that's a general European problem, right? For me,
especially Eastern Europe.
Yeah, Eastern European, definitely. I mean, for me, like growing up in Eastern Germany, in Eastern Berlin, in the east part of Berlin, of course, the wall was already down. It was reunited, right? You still, up to this day, you have so much influence of this like socialist regime and the socialist like powers, operating in all of those countries. And it's still there, it's not fully dealt with yet. The people haven't fully overcome it yet. Mm-hmm. New generations, of course, they're growing more and more out of it, which is great, right?
Yeah, but they, in the same time, don't have so much like relation anymore to the authentic culture that was there.
Yeah.
And I feel like with what's happening in Ukraine right now, it's really just like rising from the ashes and like going back to its initial roots, to the culture, to the customs, to the art, and all of these things are just being,
individuality, freedom.
Yes,
right?
It's being like reborn, and it's really beautiful to see. It's really amazing to notice it through small and big things, and I just been really encouraged through what my country is overcoming right now to look have like a different perspective on our personal struggles.
For me as a foreigner, coming here, of course, things may look a bit different than in Europe. But to my surprise, it was really just so wonderful to see what people are able to accomplish here during this time of war. I mean, we know that the country is at war and there's a front line, there's fighting. There are rocket attacks basically all of the time, right? So seeing what people are able to do here in Ukraine, building, there's so much building happening here. Of course, we live in a safer region, right? That hasn't been affected by any attacks.
And a lot of people also moved there from other regions. So it's not like a typical situation everywhere. But you can still see like the spirit of the people, and like in all of these unknowns, being able to invest and open new businesses and thrive. And I'm like, we had our personal struggles where like some of our plans failed, and we like end up with like, okay, we don't know what's the next step. And we have been so much under like oppression and anxiety of like, we don't know how to live our life, like looking forward, like what should we do? Like, how can we be productive? We don't know where we're going to be tomorrow. And here people like literally like everything could just crumble anytime if like you're in the war. Like many people couldn't leave because like men couldn't leave, and but they keep on building families, keep on getting married. They have so many children. Like we have way more like birth rate than
the streets
ever
are literally
before.
full of children here. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, also new businesses are opening, like all of the projects, like you just see so much excellence and thriving against and amidst all of the adversities, and you're just like wondering like, where does they take this like strength from?
They really want to break free from all of these old things. This like all this like Eastern influence, the Soviet communist influence. they really want to break free from that. They want to build something beautiful, right? Everything they open, every business that they open, you know, they really put so much excellence into that. There are like 1 million coffee shops, you know, in the town, yeah, because everybody now opens a coffee shop or a boutique or whatever, you know. It's like, and everything is made with excellence.
I don't even
and
know
beauty.
how they make profit, honestly, because like sometimes like you look at the prices and it's like super affordable, and then you look at the investment costs, and like we know some people personally that open the businesses and they're like, yeah, we don't know if we're gonna make any profit in 10 years. It's just like it was a project out of their passion, and so many things are just made for people versus like we just want to make money.
Yeah.
And this has been like a huge difference from everything I've seen anywhere in the world. And I just really appreciated that people are doing something just because they really passionate about what they're doing, and they want to build something, they want to try out, they want to be entrepreneurial, they want to be creative.
Yeah.
And this is just like so far from everything we know from the past and what the country has to overcome.
So far away from Soviet, which is great, you know. They should be as far away as possible, as they can, right? And they're doing it. They're breaking free in every aspect of life. You know, the value of family, right? The religious freedom, right? And faith.
Freedom of speech.
It's a really free country here. It's really one of the most free countries I've ever seen. Maybe even the most free country that I personally ever experienced.
If you see any like protest or everything going on the streets, or someone just has a funny idea, there's like no police accompanying that. Like it just, people have so much of like their personal like accountability to each other not to do weird things, that you don't need like police enforced to control it, which makes us just like on that level feel a lot more safer, I would say, even than in Europe.
Sure.
Which is like, again, like it sounds weird, and our family's like, yeah, you moved back to Ukraine and you feel safer, and we're like, absolutely. In some way, like again, like this is the region that we are, so it like we are really blessed to not have struggles that other people have further like more central, or especially on the east. But it's, I know from my friends and other people that I know and my colleagues and people I study with that it's true to almost to the same extent, even in Kharkiv and eastern regions, about how nation is thriving amidst all of it.
And I feel like the Ukrainian people are a great example of like being able to have this like pressure from the outside, but not like crumbling.
Not to crush,
you know, not to crush under it, right? And it's a really admirable thing. I feel like probably all of the nations today can learn from Ukraine. And I mean, I know from myself, you know, sometimes when there's a lot of bad news or things not going my way, you know, I fall into like social media, you know, just like aimlessly scrolling, wasting some time, you know, to not deal with that.
Not think about it.
Think about it, not deal with the problem, you know, just leave it there, you know, until maybe eventually I'll be ready to deal with it. But it's not good, right? I know it's not good. And imagine you have an actually enemy at the door, right, who is attacking you. You can't just not deal with it. So they have to, and they're able to, and they're not just crushing under the weight of that responsibility. That was a really good thing for me to see here also.
Coming back to the art and us having studio here, and also my personal struggles, like I honestly kind of in the beginning of it all, I personally struggle a lot with just keep on doing art and like keep just pursuing my business and my vision. It somehow got like, I believed so many lies, I would say, that it's not so important right now, that it's something that is like art is a luxury in like, that's just one of the perception of it, right? Like it's not something that is like first need.
What do you think is the role of the artist in society, and also the responsibility of the artist in today's society?
I think art is actually really important because it's one of the like cornerstones almost of the culture. That's like food, culture, holidays, just like the way of life of a certain nation is like so closely has to do with art, right? Like the theater and movies and costumes and traditions. And what I see now in this time, that a lot of like the authentic culture coming back into the scene that has been forgotten because of the Soviet and all of this like anti-individuality regimes and systems. And now like I see some kind of renaissance of the art starting to happen. It's not fully there yet. There's still like a lot of dark art or art just like that is too conceptual and too hard to understand, and it's all about this philosophical concepts, but
political
art, exactly.
Yeah.
But I just really believe that in this time, creating art that will leave a legacy for the nation, that will be created within this time, but also that will speak for the future and for the destiny of this nation is something really important. And that was the reason that I started to create art, like including like a couple years ago, like even before the war, like art that has to do with our cultural inheritance and our tradition. And I did a lot of research and just like connecting back to my roots and just seeing where the culture is coming from, like what are the values that we live by, like what are those things that like just identify us as a nation, and like what's behind it. But in general, I feel like mandate of an artist is to like, doesn't matter like how weird it sounds, but it really, we just have to create what we feel in our hearts to do. And like we might think like art is something like not so important in this time because like so many things are happening and people are suffering, but this is not just like a painting or a song. It's actually some asset that gives people hope, that points them back to goodness, to beauty, to God, and that inspire them and help them to just look forward with hope. And it has to bring joy. It has to be uplifting. So it's, I like to think about this meme with a dog. I don't know if you guys know this meme where like there's like a burning house and there's like a dog sitting in it, and it's like he just says like, this is fine, you know, like, and this is like how I felt in the beginning, honestly, a lot, where, you know, it's like we coming back to the country of war, and there's like all kind of ministries, and like there's volunteers, there's like all kind of things going on where if you want to be involved, you can be involved. And I'm just like renting a studio and trying to like make a setup and just keep making paintings and then painting butterflies, and I'm like, this is fine. You know, it's like, and there's like was this time where we had like electricity shortages and like AC wasn't working, it was constant like this like air alert sirens, and I'm like writing on the Instagram, it's like caterpillar, like what he has to go through, and the butterfly, and like the beauty of transformation, and I feel so stupid. I feel like who cares, you know? It's like, who cares about inner journey and transformation? Who cares about, you know? But it's like, it has a deep meaning to me, and I believe it has also for other people, and it's more symbolic, it's more artistic, but it carries this like message of hope, and that big things and good things are coming sometimes through seasons of struggle, and sometimes you just wrestle through the darkness to become something beautiful, to have realization, to build a stronger society in the future. And art is just one of these assets that really help us to envision that.
Yes.
When it's not there yet.
Yeah. Artists, well, like in that book you just showed me, right? I like the drip, yeah. I like how he says like artists are kind of like prophets. They prophesy a better future. They prophesy the future, right? Because they need to envision it. They paint it. They give people something to hope for, to long for, beauty, right? They bring beauty to the world, and it gives people hope. And I feel like it's really symbolic also here in Ukraine, for example, this struggle for and this fight for beauty, right? For freedom, for everything that is beautiful, that is good, that is true, and that's what the artists do, right? They paint beauty. Well, not everybody does, but that's
but we see here
that's
even
perverted art, like corrupted art, like political art, and that's not what I'm talking about. But
nobody buys it. Nobody wants
nobody
it on
buys
their
it.
walls
It's just a conceptual thing, some nothing
whatsoever.
real, true that people would want to hang on their walls. But the true artists, right? They paint beauty. They paint hope, and a nation needs that. People need that.
Yeah, one of my reasons for like making, when the war just started, making those beautiful women in their dresses and just all of the bright colors. I love bright colors. Like it was just to portray that Ukraine is beautiful, like the spirit of the people, the culture, the tradition, the like what we are and what we carry and who we are as a nation is just like, I want this to be known to the world. I want this to be my inheritance. I want this to be my legacy. I don't want like the things that I struggle with, or like the things that my country struggle with, like this trauma, to identify like who we are as a nation, because it at some point when you watch the news and like when you're overseas, like when you're in Europe, for example, and you see how it's portrayed, like poor Ukraine, this and this, it's like, yeah, we're at war, but like don't talk about this like it's our only identity, It's like if you talk to any person who like has any like trauma or PTSD, like PTSD or like something they're dealing with or something they went through, like they don't want this constantly to be brought up. Like they don't want this now to be their identity.
Yeah.
Like they wanna be known for who they are deep inside, who they are as like their personality, like their hopes, their dreams, what makes them laugh and smile, like what they care about, like what is on their hearts, like what they accomplish, like what, like all of these things, like why now this one trauma has to become our identity. And I feel like because of that, it's even more important to create beauty and to create hope and to paint and prophesy the future through art and culture, through the songs that we make, through the traditions and events that we make, through art and architecture. We see how like here it has like in this region you have still a lot of Soviet architecture, and then you have like this like older, like really beautiful like Baroque architecture and like different styles just from the past, and it's such a difference like how you feel around those buildings and like walking on the streets. Like do you feel uplifted and you feel like you just enjoy life and you look forward and there's history and there's beauty and stories, or you feel like oppression and everything is similar and everything is a cubicle,
it's gray, gray concrete,
so
it makes you depressed.
It's really important. Culture is so important for every nation, and artists are the ones who have this different perspective. I could look into the future and look towards the potential of the identity of like their own lives and others and the nations. So and it's not just painters, right? I mean, it's craftsmen in general. Yeah.
I mean, if the architect designs a beautiful house, that is worth something, right? If the interior designer, does something beautiful, that it all counts towards that, right?
I really love how you told me that you were watching this video about beautiful cities and that there's like just one university, right, in the world right now that teaches how to make beautiful things.
To make beautiful buildings. Everybody else is using like big concrete blocks, and like just making like concrete and glass, and it just looks super ugly. It's basically, I don't know, it just still looks like these old Soviet buildings, that are like probably the worst thing that mankind has ever produced in terms of beauty. were the ugliest things, you know.
Yeah, my friend went to architecture to study to become an architect to the university, and she said you have to pass all of these art exams. Like you literally have to paint realistically and draw realistically, like so well to even be like in like enrolled in the school. And then she said for the first 2 years they were just planning and constructing like sewers and like garages and like things like that. And she's like, what? Like, why this is now like what it meant to be an architect? Like there's it's so far from what it used to be, and it's so weird to me that it's basically beauty is like seen as a joke almost in the contemporary art styles.
It's not necessary anymore.
But it is necessary.
It is, yeah.
It's super necessary.
Yeah. Otherwise, you live completely depressed in houses that make you depressed, and that look depressing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like in Ukraine, though, so many people are really doing great. You know, they're building new businesses, houses, right? And they're really trying to bring beauty back into their country, right? Which is exactly the opposite of the Soviet rule before, right?
Yeah, it almost feels like it got even intensified with the war. Because the difference, like it just all of the gray areas, it become more like black and white, and people like no, not this anymore. Like we wanna build like our life and our society like this, and it just like it's almost like sad that though like the war had to happen, that so many people like realize that just cutting the past and not holding on to those things anymore like are necessary, like the language, and like to just speak Ukrainian, like don't speak Russian. Like I know it was part of the Soviet, that's what our parents spoke, but like really cutting out those things from the past that still make you in bondage to those systems in some way are really important to build a different future based on freedom. And I like also how Ellie talks about it, like art basically secures the freedom of the nation.
Yeah, artists basically secure the freedom of the nation.
Mm-hmm. There's no beautiful art in the oppression.
Yeah.
Like in Soviet, art was really controlled. Like you only draw political leaders or you draw anything, like you draw like banners for their party. Like honestly, when I was in my first art college back in the days, it was like 2010 when I got enrolled, my first art school, and it was intense. Like my teachers, they went through, like they were studying in college during the Soviet times, and they were like, well, all we drew was like banners and like for Communist Party gatherings and portraits of communist leaders and all of it. And it's like, what? Like, it's just crazy. So you can really see where nation is by what art it produces. And we have to make sure to be aware, first of all, of this mandate and this calling and responsibility that is on the artist to make sure that we have this freedom. Because if artists have freedom, society has freedom. Those are just some thoughts.
Yeah. If you're an artist or you have any artistic talent, we really highly encourage you to pursue that. It's gonna secure the freedom in your country, and it does change the world.
Yeah. So, I think that's what we wanted to share in this video. And we actually really love like this format, right? Like I think like it went super well. So that was our first episode of the Living Room podcast. And if you like this format, please type it in the comments. Let us know what are other things also maybe you want us to talk about. Any recommendations? We're open, you know. We talk all day basically, you know. And we just love doing that. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining in, and I will see you guys next week with the studio update. Bye bye. Bye bye.